He stood at the fence watching the last of the light die, same as he'd done every night for 3 years. The wind came cold off the high plains, carrying the smell of frost and dying grass. His ranch sat alone against the darkening hills, a single lamp burning in the window like a promise he no longer believed in. Hoofbeats broke the silence. 2 riders approached Mrs. Henderson and her niece from town. The third match she'd brought this month. The girl was young, maybe 20, with nervous hands and a practiced smile. "Mr. Garrett," Mrs. Henderson called, dismounting with the confidence of a woman who expected compliance. "This is my niece, Sarah, come all the way from St. Louis." He touched his hat brim. "Ma'am. Miss—" Sarah smiled wider. Mrs. Henderson pressed forward. "She's a fine cook. Mr. Garrett plays piano. And winter's coming, a man needs—" "I have what I need, ma'am." The words came out flat, final. Mrs. Henderson's face tightened. She'd heard those words before, from him and a dozen others like him scattered across the territory, men who'd buried their hearts and refused to dig them up. 3 years is long enough to grieve," she said, voice sharpening. "That's not for you to say." Silence hung between them, broken only by the wind. Sarah looked at the ground. Mrs. Henderson gathered her reins with the stiff movements of wounded pride. "You can't winter alone forever. Mr. Garrett, I've done it before." They rode away without another word. He watched until they disappeared into the dusk, then turned back to the fence. His hand found the wedding ring still on his finger, warm from his skin, smooth from 3 years of wearing. He should have taken it off by now. Everyone said so. The preacher, the shopkeeper, the well-meaning widows who saw him as a project to fix. But removing it felt like forgetting, and forgetting felt like betrayal. On the hill beyond his pasture, a simple wooden cross marked the grave. He could see it from here, even in the failing light, could see it from every window in his house. Some men built memorials. He'd built a prison. First snow began to fall. They watched him load supplies like he was already a ghost. Saturday morning at the county trading post, and the place was packed, ranchers stocking up before winter shut the roads. Warm inside, smelling of coffee and tobacco and judgment. He felt their eyes as he moved through the aisles. Flour, salt, lamp oil, enough for 3 months alone. 3 years is long enough. Mrs. Henderson's voice carried from the fabric section. "It's unnatural." "Some men just break that way," someone replied. He kept his face neutral, kept moving. Loaded his arms with canned goods and pretended not to hear. At the counter, Widow Baker waited Clara's friend, respectable and kind, holding a cloth-covered pie. She'd been widowed 5 years herself, knew the weight of it. "Made extra," she said softly. "Thought you might—" "That's kind, Mrs. Baker, but I'm fine." Her face fell. She nodded, took the pie back. He paid for his supplies and turned to leave. "You hear about that Dawson woman?" The shopkeeper's voice stopped him. "Moving into the old Mercer place. Alone," someone snorted. "Woman like that. Living alone, asking for trouble." "What kind of woman?" Garrett heard himself ask. The shopkeeper exchanged glances with another man. "Divorced woman. Husband ran off with her money. Town back east blamed her for not keeping him. So she's guilty of being robbed. She's guilty of poor judgment." Mrs. Henderson again, appearing at his elbow. "And now she brings that shame here." Garrett picked up his supplies without answering. But as he rode home, he passed the old Mercer place, a small cabin on hard land, the kind that broke men's backs and spirits. Smoke rose from the chimney. A lone figure split wood in the yard, a woman in men's clothes, working with the steady rhythm of someone who knew there was no one coming to help. He didn't stop, but he looked back once before the road turned. She was still working. She was already at his fence when the sun came up, holding a broken wagon axle. He saw her from the barn. standing in the cold dawn like she'd been carved from the same iron as the sky. Didn't call out, didn't wave, just waited. He approached slowly, coffee still warming his hands. Help you? Need this welded. She lifted the axle. Can pay, or trade labor. Up close. She was older than he'd expected, maybe 35. With weathered hands and eyes that didn't apologize for anything. Her face was plain but strong. The kind of face that told you she'd survived things prettier women hadn't. I can fix it. He took the axle to his forge, fired it up without small talk. She followed. Watched him work without chit-chat or fidgeting. Most people filled silence with noise. She seemed comfortable with it. The weld took 20 minutes. When he finished, she inspected it with a practiced eye. Good work. It'll hold. She reached for her coin purse. He waved it off. First repairs free. Welcome to the county. Clara Dawson. She offered her hand. He shook it firm grip, calluses matching his own. John Garrett. She studied him then, the way you'd study a horse before buying, direct, appraising. They say you turn down every woman in the county. He stiffened. That's my business. It is. She didn't look away. So I'm asking plain, you want a wife, or just a winter alone? The words hit like a fist. He opened his mouth, found no air. I'm not asking you to love me, she said, voice steady as stone. I'm asking if you plan to survive. She took the axle, paid him in smoked venison despite his protest, and walked back to her wagon. He stood frozen, her words echoing in his chest. For the first time in 3 years. He felt something. Anger, fear, or maybe hope. He found her at his door 3 days later with a proposition written on paper. Afternoon sun cut sharp across the yard. First serious snow was coming, he could smell it, feel it in his bones. She stood on his porch holding a folded page. No apology in her stance. Came to clarify my offer. He gestured her inside. She took the chair by the cold stove. Laid the paper on the table between them. Proposal's simple, she said. We marry before winter, legal, proper. Come spring, if either of us wants out, we separate. No questions, no shame. He stared at the paper like it might bite. Why, practical reasons. She ticked them on her fingers. I've got creditors back east chasing debts my husband left. Being married to you puts that debt in legal limbo. Also, there's men in town who think a woman alone is an invitation. Your name stops that. What do I get? Someone who cooks, mends, keeps house? Someone who won't let you freeze to death talking to ghosts. She leaned forward. I'm not asking for love, Mr. Garrett. I'm asking for survival, mutual benefit. He looked at his hands. The ring caught lamplight. I can't forget her. I'm not asking you to. Clara's voice softened. Just barely. I won't ask you to pretend. Won't ask you to feel something you don't. Just don't freeze to death honoring her memory. That helps nobody. Why me? Because you're the only man in this county who won't expect me to be grateful. The words hung there, true and terrible. He thought of the winter ahead, the silence, the cold. The slow dying he'd been doing for 3 years. Thought of his wife's voice. The last thing she'd said, live. John, don't follow me yet. 2 days, he said. Give me 2 days. She nodded. Stood to leave. At the door. She paused. I'm not her replacement. Can't be, won't try. But I'm alive. And so are you. That's got to count for something. That night, he visited the grave for the first time in months, knelt in the dead grass, spoke aloud to the cross. I don't know if this is betrayal or survival. The wind gave no answer, but the snow was coming, and the dead didn't need his company. The living did. They signed the papers like a business contract, which is exactly what it was. Saturday morning, county courthouse. The clerk served as witness. Bored with the whole affair. No flowers, no celebration, no kiss, just names on a line and a stamp that made it legal. Clara wore her work dress. John wore the same clothes he'd worn to his first wedding, pressed but faded. The clerk looked up. "You may kiss the bride." "That won't be necessary," Clara said. They rode back to his ranch in silence. Her belongings loaded in the wagon 2 trunks, a rocking chair, a box of books, everything she owned in the world. He showed her the spare room, his wife's old sewing room, untouched for 3 years. Dust covered the windowsill. The quilt on the bed was the one she'd made. Clara stood in the doorway, reading the room like a map of his grief. "I'll earn my keep," she said quietly. "I'm not a burden. I didn't say you were—" She unpacked in silence. He left her to it, went to the barn to finish chores he didn't need to finish. When he came back at dusk, the smell of cornbread filled the house. She'd set 2 places at the table. They ate without speaking. The food was good, better than he'd made for himself in years. When she collected the dishes, he tried to help. She waved him off. "I've got it." Night fell. She retreated to her room. He sat by the fire, listening to the wind rise. This was his life, now shared space with a stranger. A bargain made in desperation. Then the blizzard hit. Not slow, not gentle, it came like a fist, rattling the windows, howling down the chimney. Within an hour, snow piled against the doors. Within 2, the spare room chimney started smoking badly. He knocked on her door. "Chimney's blocked. Room's not safe." She appeared with her blanket. "I'll sleep by the stove." "Take my room. I'll stay by the fire." No. They both ended up by the fireplace, 2 chairs pulled close to the heat, unable to sleep. Strangers in the dark, listening to the storm try to kill them both. Neither spoke. But somewhere past midnight, he felt her watching him. "You all right?" she asked. "Fine." A lie, and they both knew it, but it was the best he could offer. The storm raged on. By the second day, silence became its own kind of conversation. Snowed in completely now. Drifts covered the windows, turned the world white and close. They moved through the cabin in careful choreography. He fed the fire. She cooked. Both of them working side by side without collision. She was competent. That surprised him, though it shouldn't have. Knew how to bank a fire, stretch supplies, keep busy, mended his shirts without asking, patched a leak in the roof from inside. On the second evening, she found the trunk. He came in from checking the barn. Animals were fine. Snow had stopped but couldn't leave yet, and found her kneeling by the old chest in the corner. His wife's things. She'd opened it before realizing what it was. "I'm sorry. I was looking for extra blankets." "It's fine." But it wasn't. He saw her take in the contents: dresses, letters, a hairbrush, a photograph. All the physical evidence of a life ended. Clara closed the lid carefully, as if it held something sacred. She was beautiful. She was. They sat by the fire that night, the 3rd evening of the storm. Clara stared into the flames, firelight playing across her face. "Can I ask what happened?" "Fever." His voice came out rough. "I was driving cattle to Cheyenne. 2 weeks gone. She died alone while I was counting money." "That's not your fault." "Feels like it." Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My husband left on a Tuesday. Took everything savings, deed to the house, even my mother's jewelry. Left a note saying I was cold, boring, not worth staying for." He looked at her. She kept her eyes on the fire. "Town blamed me for not keeping him. Said a good wife would have made him want to stay. So I became the woman who drove her husband away. That's the story they tell. That's a lie. Maybe. But lies become truth when enough people repeat them." She finally met his eyes. "You think staying alone is penance. I think it's what I deserve." And what did she deserve? A husband who buries himself with her? The words cut clean. He had no answer. Clara stood, wrapped her shawl tighter. I'm not trying to replace her, but I'm here. And you're here. And we're alive. That's got to mean something. By morning, the storm broke. Sunlight poured through the windows, blinding on the snow. He cleared the path to the barn while she made breakfast. Something had shifted. He felt it in the way she handed him coffee, the way he thanked her. Small courtesies that weren't just politeness anymore. They were beginning to see each other. They walked into church together, and the silence was louder than the organ. Sunday service. First time back to town since the wedding. The whole county was there, dressed in their judgment. Clara held her head high, but he felt her stiffen as they took their seats. Whispers rippled through the pews. Women turned cold shoulders. Men stared. The preacher took the pulpit, opened with a prayer, then launched into a sermon about righteous unions and godly choices. Every word felt aimed directly at them. Clara's jaw tightened. He reached over, placed his hand over hers. She looked at him, surprised. He didn't pull away. After the service, they tried to leave quickly. Mrs. Henderson blocked their path. Convenient marriage, wasn't it? She looked at Clara like something scraped off a boot. 4 weeks from stranger to wife. Must be nice, finding a man so desperate. Clara's face went white. Before she could respond, John stepped forward. My wife. My choice. Anyone has issue. Take it up with me. We know what kind of woman, you know nothing. His voice dropped. Dangerous. And you'll say nothing, or find your credit at my forge closed. Your husband's plow needs welding, doesn't it? Be a shame if it stayed broken come spring. And Mrs. Henderson's mouth opened, closed. The crowd watched, waiting. That's what I thought. He offered Clara his arm. We're done here. They rode home in charged silence. He felt her trembling beside him, not fear, but rage held tight. You didn't have to do that, she said finally. Yes, I did. Why, this is just a bargain. You don't owe me. You're my wife. The word surprised him as much as her. Contract or not, you're my wife. Nobody talks to you like that. She went quiet. When he glanced over, her eyes were bright. Thank you. At home. She made coffee while he tended the horses. When he came inside, she was at the window, watching snow melt from the roof. Jonna, first time she'd used his name. Yeah. Do you still want me gone in spring? He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, long silence. Long enough that she turned to face him. No, he said. I want you to stay. Her breath caught. Why? Because you see me. The broken parts, the grief, all of it. And you stay anyway. He set his hat down. Because you're brave enough to ask hard questions. Because you don't try to fix me. You just exist alongside me. That's more than I thought I'd get again. She crossed the room slowly, stood before him, close enough that he could see gold flecks in her brown eyes. I loved her, he said. I'll always love her. I'm not asking you to stop. Clara's voice was steady. I'm asking if there's room for something new. He thought of the trunk in the corner. The ring he'd finally removed last week. The way Clara had honored his grief without demanding he abandon it. There's room. He kissed her, then tentative, gentle. Nothing like his first wedding kiss. This was the kiss of two people who'd lost everything and found something small worth protecting when they pulled apart. She was smiling. We're going to be all right. Yeah, he said. We are. Winter loosened its grip one day at a time. February brought warmer winds. Ice broke on the creek. The snowpack shrank, revealing dead grass and mud and the first stubborn hints of green. They worked the ranch together, now easy partnership built on shared labor. She helped brand calves. He helped her plant a garden. Neither talked much, but the silence was comfortable. Evenings. They sat by the fire. Sometimes she read aloud from her books. Sometimes he worked leather while she mended. Once, she fell asleep in her chair. He carried her to his bed now. Theirs, and she murmured thanks without waking. One morning in early March, she found him at the fence. "Been thinking," he said, "about visiting the grave. Together, if you're willing." "I'd be honored." They walked up the hill at sunset. When the light was soft and forgiving, the cross stood straight, weathered but strong. Someone had placed wildflowers there, Clara. He realized she'd been doing it for weeks. He knelt in the grass, placed his hand on the earth. "I'm sorry I took so long," he said quietly. "Sorry I tried to follow you instead of living. But I'm done with that now. I've got someone who needs me. Someone I need, and I think you'd like her. She's stubborn as you were, brave, too." Tears tracked down his face. Clara's hand found his shoulder. "She doesn't replace you," he continued. "Nobody could, but she's teaching me how to live again, how to laugh again. And I think that's what you wanted. Isn't it?" The wind sighed through the grass. No answer. But he didn't need one. He stood, turned to Clara. She was crying too. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing me, for staying. Thank you for letting me." They walked back down the hill hand in hand, behind them. The wildflowers bent in the wind. Ahead, the cabin glowed with lamplight. Home. The land always kept its promises. Winter ended, life returned. Early April brought warmth and color wildflowers dotting the hills. Green spreading across the prairie like hope made visible. The ranch woke from its long sleep. They worked together repairing winter damage, fence posts reset, roof patched, barn door rehung. She planted vegetables in neat rows. He built a new porch, wider than the old one, with 2 rocking chairs. Town had slowly thawed too. Widow Baker waved from her wagon last week. The shopkeeper nodded grudging respect. Even Mrs. Henderson had stopped glaring. Didn't matter much either way. They had each other. One evening, they sat on the new porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. She had a book. He had coffee. Neither needed conversation. "Think we'll make it?" she asked suddenly. He considered, looked at the garden growing, the mended fence, the strong roof overhead, looked at her son in her hair, peace on her face. "We already did," he said. "Everything else is just living." She smiled, reached for his hand. Their fingers laced together naturally, like they'd been doing it for years instead of months. Later, as darkness settled, they walked to the hill. The grave was peaceful under stars, the cross still standing. Clara had brought fresh flowers. He stood there, Clara beside him, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Forgiveness. Not from his wife, he'd carried that guilt too long. Knew now it was never his to carry. Forgiveness from himself. Permission to live, to love, to build something new without destroying what came before. "Ready?" Clara asked softly. He nodded. They walked back together, toward the cabin glowing warm in the darkness. Behind them, the wildflowers swayed. Ahead, the future waited uncertain, imperfect, but theirs. 2 figures, 1 horizon, moving forward. Together. The end.